10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 352. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 352 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Wonderful to have you all back, and if you're new to the show, welcome in. We're continuing our series on the great Hank Mobley, and in this episode, we're going back to the blues, and we're going to check out his opening two choruses on Dig Dis and talk about what's going on, what we can steal from Hank Mobley, and how we can ultimately have that better our playing. But before we jump into the show, as always, just wanted to remind you this is a listener-supported podcast, which means it's people like you that are listening to the show that support us and keep this thing coming out every single week. And we do that through the Patreon platform. You give us a small monthly donation, and in return for that, you get a PDF for every single episode, along with audio examples and all sorts of fun jazz education stuff. Now, you can find that and you can get signed up to support the show by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, or simply going to patreon.com and searching for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson. Let me give a quick shout out to some new patrons this week. Thank you to our new $5 patron, Hans. Thank you to our new $3 patron, Drawer. And thank you to Emily for editing your pledge from $3 up to $5. And of course, to the over 350 people we have over there supporting the show, thank you. We could not do this without you. So again, if you want access to the stuff from today's podcast and every single episode that we've ever done, go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or go to patreon.com and search for 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. So we're going to look at one of my favorite Hank Mobley recordings, and I know I've said that in every episode, but it's true. I chose a bunch of my favorite Hank Mobley recordings for this series, and this is a B-flat blues called Dig Dis. And I'm sure for a lot of you out there, especially if you're Hank Mobley fans, you've heard this recording a million times. So this is a good old B-flat blues, B-flat concert blues, and we seem to always come back to that on this show, but that's a good thing because we know that the blues is the foundation of so much of the jazz language. And what's cool about this little excerpt, I took the first two choruses from his solo, and it really illustrates a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the first two episodes into a bigger excerpt. What we've done in the first two episodes is taken these small chunks from his transcriptions, from his solos, and this one is going to be a little bit longer, but we're going to go through and we're going to pick out some of the coolest stuff that is happening, and we're going to see some of the themes that we've already discussed this month come back and be put into action in a different context by Hank Mobley. And I always love it when we can find stuff like this, where it's like, hey, he does this thing, you should study this aspect of his playing, and then we see it in other solos, other contexts, because it proves that he's really using this stuff in a lot of his playing, and it proves that if we work on it, we can use it in a lot of our own playing. So let's check out the two choruses, and then we'll talk about some of the stuff that's happening. All right, so there's the first two choruses. Now it's important to go back and listen to the original recording, right? Because there's a lot of stuff happening. The rhythm section is playing stop time, which really affects what Hank Mobley is playing, and it's just so beautiful. His time is obviously a lot better than mine, and the way that he delivers it is obviously a lot more Hank Mobley than I delivered it. But hopefully that just gives you some idea to work off of, and then you can go over and check out the original recording. So let's talk about a few things that are happening here. So what have we talked about in the first two episodes? Well, we talked about Hank Mobley's use of sequential playing, which makes an appearance here in a couple of different places. So if you were to look at on your PDF, if you were to look at the third line down first two measures, you'll notice that he's doing some half-step sequencing in the ninth and 10th bar of his first chorus. And the cool thing is it's an exact sequence. He plays an idea and then he plays it a half step down. So it's exactly what we were talking about in episode 350 of his sequencing. It's on display here in Dig Dis as well. And then you're also going to notice if you go down to the second chorus and you look at the last four measures of the second chorus, so bars 9 through 12, he's got a lot of that stuff happening there as well. Now here it's not exact sequencing, but you will notice when you hear it all that he's definitely thinking about an idea and then moving that idea to a different place but playing almost the same thing. And then in bar 11 and 12, he does it again. It's really, really cool. So we see that stuff coming back and we start to realize, okay, well, it's not just limited to the stuff that we looked at in measure 350. It's happening all over the place. This is something that he does, that he really loves to do. And then the second thing that we talked about was his use of horizontal linear playing. And we see that all over the place in this. But let me point out a couple of spots where he's really, really using intervals up to a third, right? But mostly some type of interval of a second. So he's moving in a scalar way around. So if we look at the first chorus, the first chorus of the blues, and we look at measure 3, we see this beautiful descending line going down further than an octave. And then he moves away from the horizontal playing a little bit into vertical. Then we see it again in measure 5 of the first chorus. Then we see it again in measure 7 of the first chorus. And then we see it again in measure 11 of the first chorus. And one thing that we haven't really talked about is the way that he contrasts this horizontal playing and he tags it at the end of his lines with some vertical playing. And that's a really, really nice thing to realize and study. So a lot of the first chorus of his solo here is that beautiful horizontal scalar playing. See if you could pick out all the spots in the 24 measures that I've transcribed for you where he's playing in that way, and then dive a little bit deeper into that. And then the final thing that I sort of wanted to talk about and mention over this excerpt is how varied the rhythmic playing is. He really weaves in, a lot of these different divisions of the beat. So we've got quarter notes, we've got eighth notes, we've got 16th notes, we've got eighth note triplets, and we even have 16th note triplets. And there's also a couple of quarter note triplets in there. So if you think about all the ways you can divide a measure, Hank Mobley's doing nearly all of them without getting into like odd groupings, odd breakdowns of the beat. He's putting on a masterclass of how to use rhythmic variety along with these harmonic and melodic devices that we've been talking about all month. I want you to really dive into the rhythm and see what makes it so effective, especially with the context of the stop time that the rhythm section is playing for these two choruses. I think he's doing a lot of these rhythmic things playing off of what the rhythm section is doing. And that would be just a great thing for you to sit and think about, maybe with this transcription in front of you. Why is he playing that? Why is it so effective? How's he playing off the rhythm in the rhythm section, the rhythm of the stop time? You could get as deep as you want to in this. And for me, it inspires like endless thoughts about why he's doing this and what he's doing that I can transfer over into my practice. Let's listen to that one more time. All right. So hopefully you can sit with that for a while. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is like actually sit with the recording and do something with it, with the recording and the transcription, and figure out something that you can transfer over to your own practice time. And that could be different for everybody, right? But figure out some way to get some of these concepts into your own time. Let me know if you have any questions about this. You can always get in touch with me on Facebook, or you can email me at 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Hope you're all doing well out there. Remember to grab the PDF to this episode, and you could do that by going to 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on a Patreon banner, or going to patreon.com, searching for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. When you do sign up, you get instant access to every single episode that we have ever done, and there's a lot of jazz education materials over there that you do not want to miss out on. Thanks for supporting the show. I still hope you're all staying safe and healthy out there, and we will see you next week with a brand new episode. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.